Hello, today I am answering two of the most common questions that I get asked, and that is one, if I don't have a Pinterest account right now, can I still run Pinterest ads? Then on the opposite side of that, I have the other question of, if I run using organic Pinterest, can I or will that help me with running Pinterest ads? And so those are the two questions most commonly asked, and we're going to be talking about those today. Hi, my name is Carrie from KMB Digital. I am a Pinterest and digital marketing strategist. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I help you make more money with less hustle using Pinterest. So let's jump right in. The very first question comes to me usually from people who have gotten burned by Facebook ads. Their ads got shut down. All of a sudden that has prompted them to look into other avenues, and one of which is Pinterest. And so they'll be like, I may have a Pinterest business account set up, hardly have used it. Can I still run Pinterest ads? And the answer to that is yes, you absolutely can run Pinterest ads. You can basically just set up a Pinterest business account, even if you've never used Pinterest, and start running Pinterest ads. But there's a few caveats. So first, definitely set up a Pinterest business account. You would need to claim your website so that Pinterest knows that you're a legitimate business with a legitimate website. You're going to want to set up your profile with your name, your social media profile, like what you do, how you help people, your image, and then I always recommend at least 10 to 15 boards. The thing is, all of us, when we buy online, we tend to friendly stalk who we're buying from. And this goes for Facebook as well. So when you get served an ad, you kind of want to see who are they if you've never heard of them, and what do they do? Are they popular? Does it get good feedback? Whatever. We want to stalk who we're buying from. And so like with Facebook, you're going to go to a Facebook business page and you're going to see that they're active on Facebook. Exact same thing with Pinterest. It's like going to a store and seeing an empty storefront. And so with Pinterest, you're going to want to do the same thing where you have a profile set up and ideally with some of your content pinned to these boards to make it look like you are an active Pinterest user. The other thing that I suggest is that the other thing that you need to do is set up a Pinterest tag. And so in my course, Pinning Foundations, even if you are not even furthest thought in your mind is to run Pinterest ads, I highly suggest that if you're just starting out, you install that Pinterest tag on your website. And it's the exact same reason, if you've heard this advice from Facebook people, when you create a website to put these tags on your website, because even if you're not thinking about running Facebook ads or Pinterest ads now, you may in the future. And what that tag does is it captures information of visitors to your website. And with Facebook, you would want to put a Facebook pixel on your website, as well as if you create any lead magnets and things that have sales pages for a course or whatever. Exact same thing applies. Where your Facebook pixel is exactly where your Pinterest tag goes. The second question I get asked is, I'm using Pinterest organically, will that help Pinterest ads? And absolutely, yes, it will. And why is that? Number one reason, if you have been using Pinterest organically and you installed that Pinterest tag years ago, like what I did, I installed my Pinterest tag years ago before I even started running ads. And so then when I wanted to run ads, my pixel was already warmed up and basically had information on the people that visited my website and sales pages. And so just from using it organically, having that Pinterest tag installed, having that information will help. The reason that is because you can create different audiences based off of information that is collected. One is you can create an engagement audience. And so an engagement audience is set up. There's a couple different ways that you can set up an engagement audience, but it's basically people who have engaged with your pins. And so if those pins were going to a specific website or a sales page, that information is captured. So you can create an engagement audience. When you set that up, you can say, I want to target people who have visited my website or a specific URL or have interacted with a specific pin for the last 90 days or the last 6 months if you don't have a high traffic website. But that is using that Pinterest tag information. So that is one way that using Pinterest organically can help. The second is creating another audience, which is a visitor audience. And so a visitor is just that, someone who had visited your website, for example, or visited a sales page. Again, you can narrow that down by URL. With Pinterest, you can only have one tag. For a while, it was only one tag. Then they let you have multiple tags. Like Facebook, you can have multiple pixels. Pinterest did do that for a while. So if this is something you've done a while back, you may have multiple Pinterest tags, which I do. But how you separate that, you use that one Pinterest tag and you're going to install it on your website, on your lead magnet landing pages, the steps in your funnel, things like that. When you go to do a visitor audience, you can choose the specific URL. So you can either target people that have visited your website, or if you have a different URL for a sales page, for example, you can filter that by the URL. So that way, if your audience is slightly different on a sales page, perhaps than to your website, that's how that pixel is differentiating. The other thing is that you can create lookalike audiences. And so you can create lookalike audiences, or also they're called act-alike audiences. Lookalike is what is used on Facebook, but you can create those act-alike audiences based on people who have visited or based on who have engaged. Or another one, even though that's outside of this topic, if you uploaded an audience of people who've purchased your course, you can create act-alike audiences. And so having that tag information only helps in creating audiences for you to target. Otherwise, you will have to wait and you're going to be spending money to basically warm up the pixel, drive traffic to your website or sales page, and have that tag gather that information. So installing that tag from the beginning is like my best advice. So if you don't have your Pinterest tag installed, go run and do it right now. The other thing is there are two types of campaigns that are like most common for us, like small business entrepreneurs. One is a consideration campaign. The other is the conversion campaign. And so most new Pinterest ad users, or if you're new to ads, if you haven't had that Pinterest tag installed, you should definitely be running that consideration campaign to warm up the pixel. If you have been active and you've had that Pinterest tag installed for years and people have come to your website, have signed up for lead magnets, have purchased products off of your website, you can use that information to create a conversion campaign. And while Pinterest used to have a requirement of 50 purchases per week, they wouldn't even let you set up a conversion campaign. Now you can definitely have a conversion campaign. If you're familiar with Facebook ads, it's going to go into learning mode, and basically you're going to be paying a lot more money for conversion ads if you don't have Pinterest tag information. Consideration ads are typically much cheaper, and you are warming up that pixel. So that is the difference between consideration and conversion and how that Pinterest tag information is used. So there's a budget savings there of using a consideration versus conversion. Also going back to the original question of using organic, does that help? So in fact, it absolutely does. The second way that you can use organic Pinterest, this is a more budget-friendly way, is if you want to test pin creative. And so if you have a lead magnet, maybe you set it up a year ago and you've just been running organic traffic, and now you want to put money behind that. you can, if you would have created multiple pins, or going forward, if this is something you want to test, you can create multiple pins for that lead magnet using different creative, maybe different titles, different calls to action, whatever it is. And you can easily upload the pins, schedule them out. This takes a little bit longer depending on how much traffic you get to your website or your sign up page. It could take 30, 60, 90 days to see out of those 3 or 4 pins that you uploaded and scheduled out, what was the response. You can see how many views they got, how many people engaged with those pins, and obviously the pin that got the most attention, got the most saves and clicks and whatever, would be, deemed the winner, and that would be the pin that you would want to promote. I typically don't do this because hindsight is 20/20. Didn't set something up with that many pins probably a long time ago. Or if you did this last year before kind of the requirement of creating multiple pin creative was around, you could go back and find like an old pin that was popular and promote that. Not saying you can't do that. But typically how I do it now is when I'm creating a new lead magnet, I create 3 to 4 pins from the get-go. When I do my Pinterest consideration campaign, I will upload all of them, and then basically it's a race. Pinterest will put those pins in front of people, and you're like letting your audience decide what they like. And you do need to run ads at least for 14 days. You're going to want to look at the click-through rate, and you can very easily tell, even sometimes after 7 to 10 days, you can see which pin is like the runaway winner. Some just do really well, and then some tank, and whichever ones are doing pop or more popular, Pinterest is going to continue to show those to your audience. So if this was helpful, I hope at least the one thing that you get from this is to install your Pinterest tag. Install your Pinterest tag on your website, on your landing pages and steps in the funnel. Do that now. Even if you're not thinking about running Pinterest ads right this moment, let that pixel collect the information. You'll thank me later. The tutorial, if you go to pinterest.business.com or you just Google Pinterest pin tag, there are tutorials there on how to install them. If you happen to purchase my course, Pinning Foundations, it's in module 8, and it will give you a video walkthrough on how to install the pin tag. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I do read all of the comments, and if you have a question, perhaps your question will be the next video. And if you have any comments, please be nice. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you in the Pinterest stratosphere.